Hi everyone! This video will be focused on the new features of Universal Multi-Importer 2.3, which add important functionalities to the command batcher. Let's jump in. Command batcher used to let you execute Python command on each imported object. One really common use case is to have a bunch of files coming from another DCC and the orientation and scale are not correct. You would be able to stack up a couple of commands to fix and apply transformation. You could save the command into a preset and reuse them whenever you need. This workflow is great, but it ended up being a bit limiting. Indeed, you were able to execute the most generic commands, and the command would be executed no matter the imported data. In 2.3, when you add a new command to the list, you will see that you will have way more options here. You can now choose the data type on which you want to execute the command to, and you can inject a variable that will be replaced during evaluation by a proper value. We will come back to this later. But let's focus on a data type for now. Most of the time, when you import a file in Blender, you'll get an object. But you can also have images, audio, videos, etc. And if the importer doesn't create an object for you, you would not be able to access the imported data. So in order to address that, Command Batcher is tracking every imported data and execute the command only if the command is associated with the proper data type. Let's take a simple example. I'm importing a file from a clean scene, and as you can see, after import, my file contains objects, but also meshes, materials, images, shape keys, and armature. Before, I would only have access to objects, but now I can execute specific commands to one or many data types. I don't really like the viewport display of these armatures, so I'll create a command to help me with that. I'll start to split my view in order to find how to do this. I need an info area and a Python console. Let's select the armature, switch to the Data tab, and reach to Viewport Display panel. If I switch the Display As to Stick, for example, you will see that the command appears in the info area. I can then copy this command and paste it in the console area. Try to run it myself in order to be sure that it's working properly. As you can see, if I try to run the same command on a mesh, I would have an error, because the mesh don't have a display type. I can now create a new command in the command batcher and make sure to choose the proper data type to apply the command to. So I'm removing anything but armature. And as you can see here, the command was kept on every data type that was not selected and was executed on armature only. Let's take a second example, a little bit more elaborate. When I import a file from another DCC, the viewport materials looks funky most of the time. I think it gets its albedo, roughness and metallic from the other DCC's material. It kind of makes sense, but I'm not a big fan of it. Because when I'm in solid view, I want to be able to see the model and work with it. And if I want a more advanced preview of the final result, I would switch to preview mode or render mode, for example. So I would like to normalize the viewport material to a more generic value. Same as before, I'll select my object and reach to Viewport Display Settings under the Material tab. The model was looking really shiny and dark because metallic was at 1 and roughness was really low. Let's find a value that would make more sense here. An albedo of 0.5, metallic of 0 and roughness of 0.5 looks good to me. Looking at the command, you can see that it's a bit different. And indeed, if I copy and paste this command, it would work partially. Here you can see the command refers to the active material of the object, but one object can have many materials. So using this command will only affect the active material. This is why I've implemented the variables in Command Batcher. If you hover over the variable name, you will have a tooltip to explain what is the effect of each of them. And to properly access all imported material, I need the item data variable. it has to be written exactly the same way in order to work properly. That's why you can select it, copy and paste in the command. This item data will return the data of the item depending on the current data type. If I apply a command to a material, it will return bpi.data.materials, name of the material. And if I apply the command to the mesh, it will return bpi.data.meshes, name of the mesh. I can now just report these commands in Command Batcher and make sure to apply it to the material data only. I now have 4 commands, 1 that will be applied to armature and 3 to materials. And as you can see, everything works as expected. Let's finish with an even more elaborate example. By default, when importing sound, Blender just imports the data and doesn't do anything with it. It almost looks like nothing happened. But looking at Blender files, I indeed have my sound imported. Let's make use of the variable to import them in the scene. The first thing I would need to do is to create a speaker and copy-paste its command to a text editor. Then move to the Data tab in order to link the sound. But here, when I do a change, nothing will show up in the info area. It will be a bit trickier to find how it's named, so I will look in the console. With the speaker selected, I can type bpi.context.object.data, then click on Tab to show the auto-completion. After looking closely, I can see a sound property. And if I check its name, I see it corresponds to the sound I have selected. Let's change the sound here and check the same command again. Yes, so now I know it's a proper value I need to fill in my command. Let's copy-paste it for later. Finally, let's move the speaker in the positive X direction a bit and copy-paste the command for later. Going back to the command batcher, I can create a command for each sound data and paste the first one as it is. It will create a speaker in the center of the world. The second command starts with bpi.context.object, which refers to the active object, which is fine, because after creating the speaker, Blender will make it the active object automatically. I can then set its sound data property to item data. Finally, I would like to offset each speaker next to each other in order to avoid them to be overlapping in the center of the world. The thing is that if I offset the speaker by the same amount for each file, they will still be overlapping at the end. So to address that, I can use the data item index variable, which will return an integer value that corresponds to the index of the currently imported data type. If it is the first item, it will return 0. If it's the second one, it will return 1, etc. I'll multiply this parameter to a factor in order to control the spacing of the objects. And that's it. When I'm importing, you will see that the speaker will be created and linked to a sound, and finally will be offsetted. And don't forget that you can save these commands as a preset to reuse them later, and that the command batcher can be used outside of import mode too, by going to Object Command Batcher. I hope it helped you to get a better understanding of what Command Batcher can do for you, and that it will help you to find quick solutions to make repetitive tasks less daunting. Have a good one!